Hi, I'm Julian Leicester. I'm Malaysia's renowned hypnotherapist all across Asia. Years ago, when I wanted to get trained, I was looking around to who could train me, and there was just one name that kept popping out, and that was Valerie Austin. People told me that Valerie Austin was here in Malaysia in the 80s, but now she's in London. And I went over to London to be trained by her, and her training was amazing. And I can tell you why. Because of her training, her structure, the solidness of her syllabus. Today, that has made me a very competent hypnotherapist for 25 years. I've won many international and national awards in Malaysia for my work in hypnosis. I've been in newspaper, I've been a columnist, and I've been a media personality with hypnotherapy in the country. People in Malaysia just know me. Why am I telling you this? Is because Valerie taught me to be the best. Introduce you to Valerie Austin.
I was working in Harley Street, which is in London, where all the famous doctors are, and I had a wonderful office there and doing very well. And then we had a downsize in our economy, and so the psychiatrists that used to give me their clients, they needed their clients because the insurance was taking a lot away from certain types of therapy that was needed. So I went over to Malaysia and thinking that the world was in economy drop, and it wasn't. It was fabulous. And I went to a paradise island and I set up business and wondered if it would work. And it did. I had the most wonderful 7 years back and forward to Malaysia and thoroughly enjoyed it. And I was very excited with the concept of working in Malaysia and Asia. Malaysia, why did I come to Malaysia? And I've answered it through the years a little bit incorrectly, saying, well, it was to do with the finance and England was going into a recession. But really, when I actually think about it, it was far more deeper and more interesting than that. It was just before when I'd been asked to go for a holiday with a girlfriend, and the tourist board had suggested this place that was very new to go to all those years ago in the early 90s, and that was Malaysia. And so I was terrified of dragonflies. In fact, if I saw a dragonfly going into a field, I wouldn't go into a field. That's how bad it was. And so I had not gone anywhere that there was a possibility of dragonflies. So now I had to do something about it. So I was trained. I trained people for many years, even at that point. And I used to do phobias. I was very good at doing phobias. And so one of the people I trained, I did a swap with. She wanted to find out a dream she had, what it was about, and I wanted to get rid of the phobia of dragonflies. And so she did some work on me. It was directly after the course, which is the best time, I think, when people are really sharp and don't get other things in the way. And it went. I no longer had a fear of dragonflies. It proved it when I went on holiday, and I'll tell you about her situation in a moment. And when I went on holiday, I was in Malaysia and there was dragonflies, and I went to the famous Princess, which is a tourist spot, and it was her where she was buried, and there was 30 dragonflies, and I was able to walk through the dragonflies. I couldn't believe it. And it was this magical tourist place with this princess that had an incredible story where it seems like a father had actually she'd been put to death because of a love affair, a famous love affair, and it's dealt with her, I believe her father, the one that had killed her or had her killed. I may have that a little bit wrong, but it's very near. And so Anyway, that I just enjoyed Malaysia. I loved it. I was on Langkawi. I loved it, and it was fabulous. And that was the holiday. And that's what actually made me go back. But let's go back to the lady that I did the hypnosis with the dream. And so when I went back into the dream, it sort of took her into a past life. And in this past life, it was about a princess on an island, and it was she was very much in love with somebody there, which was the person, you know, was complicated, and I believe he might have been married. But whatever it is, and I hadn't done my research for this video because it's a long time when I told the story, but whatever happened is that she said that she hadn't really been killed, that she'd actually been made it look like it, and then she'd escaped. And I found out when I went to Malaysia afterwards, and after getting to know people, that what she told me, I can't remember the details, exactly would have been correct with this princess. And so I felt I had a link, a bond with Malaysia, especially Langkawi, and that's where I wrote my first book, Self-Hypnosis, and that was published by Thorson's, which is part of HarperCollins.
At that time, Malaysia hadn't heard about hypnotherapy, and Valerie was there to promote about hypnosis to all Malaysians. She was in the radio, television, newspaper, she was writing an article, she was promoting in universities. And so, it was Valerie who brought hypnosis to Malaysia.
When I first went to Malaysia, I went on a holiday, and it was with a girlfriend, and we weren't told. It was just as it was coming popular, or starting to become popular as a holiday place, but they didn't tell us that it was a rainy season. So that week it rained every day. Beautiful weather, but it rained, and so I was able to do some sort of like research around because there wasn't anything else to do, and I found the island fabulous. It had one road round it. There was very few places to go, and so I decided to write my book there. And it was my first book I'd been commissioned for, called Self-Hypnosis by Valerie Austin, and I was working out of a hotel there, and I just had the most delightful time seeing clients, but I found that I needed more clients, and so therefore I went to Kuala Lumpur. So I worked in Langkawi and Kuala Lumpur. I had a wonderful office there that had been helped by a hotelier, and I went on from there. And so my first book came out. I got famous in England, Malaysia, and around the world through that book, and 7 more followed. Well, I had been to different countries and promoted myself there, and what I found I'd do is I would, being a journalist at one time, freelance and working for magazines and a columnist, I was pretty au fait with the press, and so I presented myself as a very highly paid, and said how good I was, and knew that the press would be able to have a story if they exposed me, or have a story if it worked. Fortunately, I know it worked, and so I had fabulous press. And so when I came to Malaysia, I did the same thing. And so I used the press and had marvelous press again. And was on television, was on radio, was in the newspapers, and I had a lot of help. And it just worked.
How do you go about it? Because you're talking about hypnosis, hypnotherapy.
That's right,
yes,
yeah.
Okay, explain further. I need to lose about 20 pounds here. Okay, how can I make use of this book and this cassette? Yeah.
Well, fortunately, I've been following from the program from the space age, and so you've been talking about something very sophisticated, and so I'm now going to talk about something very sophisticated to do with the mind. Slim While You Sleep is a new technique in hypnosis. You actually put the tape on when you sleep, and it's not subliminal. You put it that puts you into sleep mode.
I first met my wife Valerie at a hypnotherapy convention in Indiana. And after our initial meeting there, she invited me to come to Malaysia where she was working. And so I went to Malaysia and had a really great time. The really unique thing about Valerie's hypnotherapy is that she works in almost a state of pure subconscious. Her client is in deep hypnosis, and when Valerie asks questions, the client's subconscious is answering, but Valerie can target the questions to the subconscious because she herself functions in a almost subconscious state. And this is really very interesting to watch. It was very interesting to watch, particularly when she was doing it in Malaysia. And I was fascinated in watching her work because I learned far more about the subconscious there than I did from many academic studies of Freud or anything like that. Val also had a very good relationship with a group of psychology professors in Malaysia. The Malaysians have very innovative minds, and they were quick to recognize the kind of pioneering work Valerie had done in the subconscious. And I sat in on a couple of meetings that Valerie had with some psychology professors, and in which they were asking her questions about the subconscious and this sort of thing. It was all very fascinating stuff. And then later, for my own benefit, I studied some of her case histories. So she had videoed work with some of her most interesting clients, and I was able to study these on tape. And of course, in the old days of the tape going, you'd stop it and then go back to listen to it to get the exact wording and things like that. And I found these very helpful as far as studying the subconscious. And mind you, I've had the background of studying the history of mesmerism, studying Mesmer, who began working with the subconscious, probably the earliest person to do so back at the time before the French Revolution. So that goes back hundreds of years. So I had studied all these things, but had never seen anybody able to work with it as clearly as Valerie did. And I believe you can actually still obtain her case histories of her hypnotherapy. I think she still has those. You can probably look on her website, and some of those tapes are still available that you can actually study those. And overall, it was a really interesting time for me in Malaysia. I think Valerie made a really good choice of choosing Malaysia as a place to do this kind of pioneering work, because, as I said, the Malaysians are very think in a very innovative way, and they were able to recognize the strength of this. And I just had a really great time, both from the learning standpoint, and of course Malaysia is a beautiful country to visit. You know, it's hard not to have a good time in Malaysia.
But a challenge, of course, was to get a work permit, because you have to have a work permit, especially if you're famous or intending to stay and not be a quick sort of fling somewhere. And so you have to be honest and to make sure everything you do is correct. And so therefore I worked very hard at getting the work permit, and I was very proud because on my passport it said what is my career, and I was able to put hypnotherapist. I probably the only person that has that on their passport, and thoroughly was proud of it. Going back to talking about the university where I did the training, at the end of the training I had to give out the awards, but the most magical thing happened to me is that awards were going to be given out at the hospital, and the minister, health minister, said he would give out the awards, and with the TV there. And so that was the most frightening, fun, exceptionally exciting thing to do, because I had to get it right, and it was in front of the minister, in front of the television, and it went very, very well. And so that was one of the rather challenges because of getting it right and being filmed. And the next was when I was at a beautiful hotel and the Prime Minister was there, and I was invited to talk to them while they were having lunch, and I was doing my training course there, and the then owner of the Malaysian Airways, or CEO, which he would probably be then, introduced me as the lady that brought executives to the island and to Malaysia. And I just felt very proud, and I talked to the Prime Minister, and his wife asked for my book. And I remember one of the somebody said, "Oh, we'll get it later," and the Prime Minister's wife said, "No, I'd like you to get it now." And he had to go to my room and organise getting the book and bring it to her. I felt so proud of that too. Training in Malaysia. Yes, I was invited to Sabah, and I was the only non-professor that was speaking at their conference when the Sabah University first opened. And that was organised by the Dean of the University in Kuala Lumpur. I stayed there. It was the most fabulous place. I just thoroughly enjoyed it. And many of my students came. Going back into Langkawi, I had courses at the beautiful places in Langkawi, and also in Kuala Lumpur and various places around Asia. I had a lot of people come from all over Asia. They were in Malaysia for certain reasons, so it was Chinese, there was Chinese Malaysian, there was Japanese, there was all the countries that or states around that I was able to check to see if everybody acted the same in hypnosis, which they did, and it was good to see.
Well, I first encountered Valerie in my late 20s, early 30s, where I had this opportunity to study from her when she came down at Langkawi to certify us to become a hypnotherapist. Valerie actually was the catalyst that spearhead what we all now know as hypnosis and hypnotherapy. Without her, we wouldn't have heard of those words or be able to apply the ways of hypnosis in our everyday life that will help us or have helped many people to be able to overcome challenges, obstacles, and to become better than what they expect to be.
The challenges was that I was blonde and female and by myself, and so I wanted to make sure that I was in a position that would be accepted, and also that I would be respected for myself. I got some wonderful friends together in high positions, and they helped me greatly. And it seemed to be a fairly easy ride. I just loved it, and the people were so interested, and so it wasn't so hard. But at the beginning I had to get it right, because if I got it wrong I would have missed the best opportunity of my life, because I believe those 7 years was the best time of my life as a therapist. It sure was pioneering work, and what I enjoyed the most and believe impacted the local community is being able to train people to do my course and train people to be excellent hypnotherapists. And they were able to go out, they were able to do press. I taught them how to work with press, I taught them how to work with the medical people, and so they had an all-rounder, and a few of them wrote books, and I'm in those books with a thank you, which is great. And I was able to feel I'd left something in the country that would go on, which is true because Julian was one of my students many years ago, and he went on to be an excellent practitioner and using my method, and they're still doing so now. And so, as he said, I've got a lot of people there, family there, that use my technique, which will go on, and I'm very, very proud of that, especially the award I was given for the legacy. And the award was for bringing hypnotherapy into Malaysia. I'm very proud of that. I have to say that this was definitely to do with the university. The dean of the university had seen my work, and he was very, very complimentary at my work. And he asked me to actually train his students and his the university and his professors, and I was not sure what to do because I was very, very highly paid for this sort of thing, but I didn't want to put this in front of there. So I decided to donate the course, and I was so pleased to do it. And so we had 12 people, and some were professors and some were scientists and some were colleagues and students, and one in particular that was very, very good was a blind student, and he was able to do the hypnosis. Very exciting to have somebody like that there. And also, not everybody could take the full course, which was 7 consecutive days, which was my normal course. And so I was able to see, when I did organise the exam, the difference between somebody having, say, 3 days, somebody having 5 days and 7 days. And when I put it together, the only way you could do it is doing the full 7 days. And so I had a lot of good research there. Stop smoking. That's really what made my fame. And the reason I did stop smoking, and I created Stop Smoking in 1 hour, and the reason I did this was the press or anybody else, you could prove it worked, because people either smoked or they didn't. It was very hard for them to hide smoking, especially with the smell of the breath and everything. And the other thing, I didn't have things against smokers. In fact, I would say to them, oh, I don't mind smokers, that's how I make my living. And so they would be happy and smile, and it meant there was no problem. They didn't feel that I was against them. And so I had so many smokers in the very first time I started the hypnosis, because I got a very big article, I Can Stop You Smoking in 1 hour. And that article in England filled me for a year of smokers. But it wasn't just smokers. Because of the article, I got a third smokers, a third weight, and a third everything else. And that's where I got my start off, got my book contract, and then I got several book contracts from major publishers, and I was off with my career. I loved it. The most favorite thing I did was training. I created a training course that was idiot-proof, I believed, and so therefore, if the students learnt exactly what I did, they were able to use their own experience in between the questions, as long as they kept to the recipe. And if they kept to the recipe, they could get as good as I was, as long as they kept to it. Now that was difficult because they would go on courses afterwards that would train them a different way, and if they changed their way of training and had some of mine and some of something else, it dropped considerably, the success rate. I had a success rate of 95% overall. It was quite incredible, and the students that really worked at it could get that percentage. The others did very, very well, and I was very proud of them. but my courses were very demanding, and the pass rate was 80%. I'm sorry about that, 80%. And also, it was all written. There was no questions with A, B, C. It was all essays. It took several hours, sometimes 4 or 5 hours to do the exam. And when they'd finished the exam, I knew from their exam paper whether they could go out and use my name. If they didn't pass or hadn't quite got it, I would work with them personally with no cost to get them back onto where they should be, which was very few people had to do that with. And when I went to Malaysia, I wondered how that would work with it being the second language. And I found after 7 days, the same thing happened. They were as good, only a few needed a little bit extra. I was so surprised, but then again, they do respect the mind. I find that Asians respect the mind, whereas English sort of didn't respect it as much and thought, they didn't depend on the mind so much as the Asians, and they respected it, and I loved it. I loved training the people. They were so clever, and I was running around with the hypnosis in the therapy. It was delightful, and people liked it. They enjoyed it.
I tell Valerie Austin, you have a big family of hypnotherapists in Malaysia that has come from your legacy over the years in bringing hypnosis to Malaysia. So all this wouldn't have happened for this lady who brought hypnosis to Malaysia, Valerie Austin.